Thanks for a fantastic introduction. And just point out that we've got over 100 volunteers in Queensland alone, and we're on a few hundred volunteers across the country, so probably more than 500. So it's pretty exciting, the growth rate of the organisation. And so today I'm going to talk to you about the Stationary Energy Plan. You heard about it just then. It's this book here, and it was published in conjunction with the University of Melbourne's Energy Research Institute, and we do have a partnership with them, and it shows how you can take the economy from where it is today, describing the base case of what situation we're in today, to an economy that's completely decarbonised, so running in this case on 100% renewable energy, so we're producing as much energy as we need, and we're doing it in a really efficient way. So that's the plan. So my talk's about transforming Australia from a 19th century fossil fuel-based economy to a 21st century 100% renewable powered clean tech economy, and we can have one of those if we choose to do so. So it's the organisation is a pro bono research organisation principally. So we have a few hundred volunteers who are engaged just in research. So they're working on our Stationary Energy version 2. But particularly right now they're working on our buildings plan, our transport plan and our land use plan. So our buildings plan is due out in about 2 months, and I'll be happy to come back in 6 months' time and present that to you. And that's looking at a whole lot of different types of buildings in the national stock and how you comprehensively treat the existing stock for air infiltration, building envelope, insulation upgrades, and reduce energy demand significantly, and talking about the economics of that. And so we can significantly reduce energy demand in our building stock, domestic, commercial and industrial. These are the kind of people who put together the Stationary Energy Plan. We call them the can-do team because we hear a lot of can't do around, everything's all too hard. And I'll give you an anecdote as to why things aren't really that hard. We just seem to have a national problem in getting things done in relation to what the Germans did on their Christmas holidays a month ago. Okay? A pretty amazing thing they did. So, the Stationary Energy Plan, I just mentioned, released in July 2010, and we're hoping to get an update out in the coming year. Transport plan in progress, and that's a really big job, and we're hoping to have University of Queensland on board shortly as a partner in that, along with Melbourne University. Buildings plan just about to be released, and we've got the land use plan underway, so really significant work there, and we can obviously look out for those. In the future, when we get enough capacity, we'll be looking at industrial processes. The big ones from an emissions vector perspective are cement making and coal for steel making, so coking process for making a reduction reaction for making steel, but that can already be done today using a different type of process called a direct reduced iron plant, a DRI plant, and that's how India gets almost half of their steel making. So it's one thing to do a huge amount of research and to produce a 200-page report, but without the old traditional university way of doing that is to release the report to one media story, and then it gathers dust on the shelf, and then you go away and do your next report and release that in 3 years' time. Our idea is to release something and make sure all of Australia knows about it, and that's why we're getting out to town halls, Apex clubs, Lions clubs, Rotary clubs, scout groups, church groups, school children, any audience anywhere, University of Third Age, Country Women's Association branches and church groups. So you can find out about us all over the place. And here's some of our trained public speakers. So these are one of the volunteer public engagement teams. We've got the media team and the presentations team. In the top left you can see half of the Queensland speakers team, and so they're all being trained, retrained, and their skills being upgraded so that they can deliver talks, not unlike this one that you're receiving tonight from me. We also do a lot of media. We've got a media team, and Queensland's media team is pretty active if you want to join. Here's a gig that we got at the Wharf Theatre Company with Kate Blanchett and Tony Jones, so it was a special Q&A, and got Bob Carr there in Shenronji. He's the richest solar power manufacturer in the world. He runs a big company, Suntech, and he came out of being trained at the University of New South Wales. So it's an Australian success story, but the money's being made in China. and that's Shenrong G there. And solar is rooftop solar is a major success story. Here are Shenrong's his solar panels on the roof of the Sydney Theatre Company, and I managed to get the front of the white cages in Sydney out of the Wharf Theatre debate. So that was pretty exciting there. So our media team seems to do a pretty good job, and they can always do with more help. Dr. Carl runs around with his Dr. Carl's $37 billion a year plan over a decade, and just happens that Dr. Carl's plan is exactly the same as ours, but if you watch Sunrise or listen to Triple J, you'll hear Dr. Carl talking about that. So he's a big fan of the project and does the presentation better than me. So look out for it, Dr. Carl. I'm serious, does a really good job. So yeah, David Suzuki is in on the action as well. He wants to take the model of the volunteer research organisation to a project he's doing, which is basically a zero carbon Canada. So we're exporting the idea around the world, which is pretty exciting. And that was us interviewing. We've got a radio show and we interview experts in renewable energy and climate solutions from around the world. And he was someone we were lucky to get live on the stage at Federation Square in Melbourne. Just a little quick tidbit on the climate science, just so you know the context of why we're saying we should rush ahead in a decade and just get the job done instead of talking about it and flip-flopping away. Will Stephan is from the government's climate change committee, and they make recommendations around what to do, which in regards to the Clean Energy Future Package. Unfortunately, what they sort of said in their recommendations don't appear to be reflected in the package, but if you have a look at the data behind the budget approach, which is what they recommended, you'll see that the USA, this is a chart from Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor's science advisor, and he's also the science advisor to the EU. And he says that the United States needs to be completely decarbonised in a decade in order to avoid 2 degrees Celsius of warming. And the thing about it is, if you wanted to go to 3 degrees Celsius, because I've heard some ridiculous comments from people saying, oh, 2 degrees, that's too ambitious. If we're going to go to 3 degrees, well, they'd have to be decarbonised not too far after 2020 either. So, unless you really want to get up to load on 4, 5, 6 degrees warming, we better get moving quick, smart. So now I'll just tell you about power generation. This is conventional power generation, the way most of it occurs around the world. You've got a heat source, and you boil water in a giant kettle, a boiler, and then that water becomes high pressure steam, and the only way for that steam to exit the boiler is via its injection points into the steam turbine, and it spins the blades, and out the other end it drives the generator, and that gives you your light. And you don't have to supply that from coal or gas. You can supply it from uranium, the heat to boil that water, or you can supply it from solar energy. So you just need heat to make steam, and then you've got a conventional steam cycle power plant or a Rankine cycle power plant. And that's what your coal plant is today. So that's a coal-fired power plant's feedstock. It's coal, and it's pretty dirty, and it's very damaging to landscape and health from the dust. And of course, the resultant damage of the emissions from burning it, not only the local emissions, which cause acid rain and also include cadmium, mercury, thorium, radon, and all other things that go up the stack or out into the saline waste outfall, but climate damage that happens and affects us all. So you can convert that coal in a coal-fired power plant like this one. Some people think they're beautiful. There it is. And that will then generate electricity from that coal. So you've basically got a heat source there. They're converting into electricity, which is then being delivered into the grid. One alternative to a big coal mine is replacing the coal mine with a mirror field. So you're mining the sun, not mining coal. The advantage of mining the sun is generally coal seams only go so deep and then they have to go sideways, and they just keep going sideways forever, and 100 years later they're still moving, taking over the next bit of farmland and encroaching on the next bit of habitat. With a mirror field, you get the mirror field in once, and you can keep producing on the same site forever until we invent a better way of producing power. and you don't need to keep expanding where you go, leaving a legacy of destruction. And not only that, there's known efficiency improvements that can occur by upping the temperature of these plants, so in the future they could actually produce 50% more power from the same site and the same amount of concrete, steel and glass. So there's a lot of scope for improvement with the plant. This plant's baseload or dispatchable, can come in an intermediate arrangement, a peaker or a baseload plant. And this is how it works in, say, baseload operation. You've got 2 tanks at the base of a tower, and the tower is a smokestack, like a coal smokestack, but exactly the same, in fact, same contractor to build it, but no smoke coming out of the top. So the tanks at the base contain molten salt, and the salt is industrial fertiliser, so it's a binary mixture of potassium nitrate and sodium nitrate, so 60% sodium nitrate, 40% potassium nitrate. The salt, which is in a molten state at 290 degrees, it freezes at 220 degrees and becomes hard salt again. At 290 degrees with a safety margin there of weeks and weeks before it would solidify, it's then pumped up the tower where it receives the light on tubes, which are like boiler tubes, and the salt's passing through the tubes, receiving the light from thousands of mirrors. So a sea of mirrors, a field of mirrors is surrounding that central tower and focusing the sun's rays, each of them individually tracking on the top of that tower. So there's a lot of heat up the top of the tower, and that salt's pumping through pretty fast, taking that heat down the downcoming pipe into the hot tank. So as the cold tank is emptying, the hot tank is filling up, and we're basically filling that hot tank at 565 degrees, which is the same sort of temperature that a modern coal-fired power generator operates at. And that gives the same sort of efficiencies as a coal-fired power plant. So any time, day or night, when you need power, you can be banking the heat and you don't even have to generate. So it can be middle of the day. The wind could be blowing, it could be Christmas and it's really quiet, no industry's running. And you can just bank the heat, sit there banking it away. Or you can fire up the pump that pumps the salt from the hot tank back to the cold tank, and it does that via a heat exchanger, a shell and tube heat exchanger. So you've got water running past the salt. It can rapidly ramp because they can keep it in a ready to generate state by they just bleed a little bit of heat off the cold tank and the thing just turns around ready to go. So they can have this ramping at the speed of a gas-fired power plant if they want. It's not encumbered by all pollution control equipment and pre-coal processing equipment of a conventional coal plant. And the locations you put this in are sort of a couple 100 kilometres inland here is a sort of your ideal location, better than where they're building them in Spain. And here's what a heliostat looks like, and in the US plants they're building have 17,500 heliostats. They're building one plant like that in Spain as well. And it's 130 square metres. It's the size of my house, which is a 1970s average house. So it's a pretty big mirror. And you can imagine 17,000 of those. I can tell you I was there standing in front of it and my head was getting warm just by having one behind me. So you wouldn't want to be standing in the focus of 17,000. It's hot and it's very hot. And that's what a plant looks like when the mirrors are in stow. So it's not generating. You see the blackest black at the top of the tower, and that's Inconel. It's the same metal that's used in jet engines by Rolls-Royce or by United Technologies Corporation, Rocketdyne, and Pratt & Whitney. So they use the same metal as it's used in the jet engines, and that's what they run the salt through. This is the plant when it's ready to, it's about to generate. So they heat up the receiver, which is the blackest of black at the top of the tower. The receiver, metallic receiver, is heated up to 400 degrees, ready for the salt to pass through. So not ready to generate, ready to collect the sun's energy. Ready to generate from the salt tank, of course. So this is ready to receive the sun's energy. This is Paddy's up the tower. And it does say it's a view from the receiver, but if you're standing in the receiver, he'd vaporise and disappear. So it's really effective as there, but he's actually under the receiver. So he's quite a bit of the way under. It's really hot in the tower, and it's just extraordinary.